Dialing in your night photography compositions can definitely be challenging, but there is just a couple secrets that I have learned over the years that have really helped me to improve my night photography compositions. My name is Austin James Jackson. I'm a professional landscape photographer based here in the beautiful southern Utah. In this week's video, I'm so excited to share with you. It's kind of two-ish tips about dialing in your night photography compositions. Really, it's just kind of one merged into two, with a little bit of a trick in the field combined with a trick in post-processing. Now, there's a few things that we need to know before we jump into the post-processing, and that is, first of all, that you need to understand that a good daytime composition is not equal to a good nighttime composition. This is because during the daytime, we rely a lot on lighting in our photos. We rely on that nice light to create shadows, to create depth and dimension in our images, whereas at nighttime, we don't have that depth and dimension. We don't have that light. Instead, we have really, really flat light, which can provide different compositional opportunities. So let's talk about really what makes a really great night photography composition, kind of what that secret is. Now, of course, there's a lot of different ways you can create great compositions at night, but my secret here I'm going to show you is revealed in these images. Look at the set of these images and then look at these other set of images and tell me if you can choose which one you like better, and then tell me if you know what the difference is. Now, in my opinion, of course, there's always going to be some people that like one set over the other, but most people are going to choose this second set. And do you know why that is or what the difference is? So the difference is that this second set of images all has some object from the foreground that protrudes into the sky to create some visual interest and to bridge the gap. These photos utilize something that we have in our image that we can't get if we're not utilizing the sky, which is natural contrast. When I say natural contrast, I mean that our object in the foreground is dark. It's protruding into the sky, almost like it's silhouetting. The sky is really bright. That's the only place in the image in a night photo that we can get natural contrast. During the daytime, we achieve this by overlapping objects with different colors, like one part in sunlight, one part not in sunlight, whatever it may be. But at night, the only way that we can create natural contrast in the scene, because the light is so flat, is by overlapping something in the foreground with something in the sky. So I think that is the best way to create compelling compositions. I'm not saying that there isn't great compositions where there isn't an object that protrudes into the sky, and I'm not saying this is always possible, because it certainly isn't. But when you do have the opportunity to do this, it's definitely well worth something that is worth trying out, because I think it does create those really nice compositions. But you can see I have a wide range of images in my portfolio where it just simply wouldn't have been possible to get lower than the subject. But do give this a try when you do have the opportunity to get lower than the subject. I like to shoot with something really wide, get really up close and personal with my subject, make it look long, stick up into the sky, and really just bridge that gap, make things look a little bit taller, a little bit stretched. And I think it is the best way to create good compositions in the field. Now, just taking the photo in the field isn't enough. There's a post-processing aspect that gets involved too. More often than not in night photography, the biggest mistake I think people make is that they over-contrast their foregrounds. They add too much contrast to the image. Generally, this is done in the global slider because we want to add contrast to that Milky Way to make the Milky Way pop. But as we do that, it makes the foreground too dark and too contrasty. So because of that, there is a trick that I want to show you to make that foreground still have a lot of detail, still not be too much contrast, and still look relatively realistic, in my opinion, to the scene. It's going to be using the tone curve. Now, let me show you what I mean. We'll jump over here into Photoshop. We've got our image here. This is a blue hour blend, but even if it was just a single shot, it would still look roughly about the same. Now, most people would make the mistake, no matter what software they're editing in, Lightroom or Photoshop, they would come in here and they would grab their contrast slider and they would just increase that because it makes the Milky Way look so much better. Then when the foreground gets too dark, they would grab shadows and maybe grab blacks and bring that up, maybe increase the exposure, and end up somewhere like that, which certainly doesn't look bad, but I want to show you guys a little bit better way to do it. So you can technically do this in Lightroom. It's going to work a little bit better in Photoshop because you've got a little bit better masking tools. But what you want to do is just make a selection of just the foreground. So I'm going to do that by going to select, and I'm going to go to select sky. Now I know I said I wanted to select the foreground, but if I select the sky, I can invert it. You can see it's done a great job on this image detecting the sky. If it didn't, I could go in there and touch it up. I'm going to go up and I'm going to go to inverse. I'm going to inverse that. So now I'm just selecting the foreground. Now, once I have this selection made, it's as easy as going into your adjustment layers. You're going to hit brightness contrast. And I'm just going to slide the contrast down because I want to reduce the contrast in the foreground somewhere like that. That's looking pretty good. Now I want to grab the same layer mask. There's one more thing I want to do. I'm going to hold Command on Mac, that's Control on PC, and I'm going to click. That's going to select that as a layer mask, and I'm going to open up Curves. Now I want to drag the blacks point up here, and basically what that will do is it will flatten out some of the darkest. You can see the really dark spots in here. By bringing up the blacks point, it just flattens that out. And you don't want to overdo this or else you get this kind of washed out look. But usually if I'm looking at this output here, usually I'm between 5 and 10 points. And then I can also go onto the curve and drag it down to retain the darkness. But this is another way that I'm removing contrast from that foreground. So now you can see I have something like this, which to me looks a lot more realistic than if I was to come in with your global contrast slider like most people do and just punch it up like that to get the Milky Way. Now, of course, these two adjustments aren't affecting the Milky Way, so you'll have to do that in a different way. But this, in my opinion, is going to be one of the best ways to adjust the contrast in the foreground. Now, in that example, I had a pretty good foreground to work with, but in a lot of your examples, your foregrounds might start off a lot darker. This technique is still going to work the exact same. You'll just have to apply it in a little bit stronger. But this has helped me to really create those kind of flatter looking foregrounds, which I actually like for the Milky Way photos because it takes away from the attention down there in the foreground and it keeps the attention on the Milky Way, but it still allows the foreground to play a important part in the scene of adding to the Milky Way. So those are kind of my secrets when it comes to composition and Milky Way, to do that with your composition in the field, and then to go in post-processing and do that little bit of contrast adjustment there. Those are two things I think that a lot of beginners don't think about. I know I certainly didn't. It's probably something that you haven't really thought much about either, but do give this a try on your Milky Way photos and let me know what you think. Again, the idea of creating realistic Milky Way photos is definitely up to your own interpretation, since obviously we can't really see the Milky Way that well with our naked eye. But to me, this creates images that are much more realistic than something that's light painted or over contrasted in the foreground. If you guys have any questions about this video, please feel free to let me know down below in the comments, and I will definitely make sure to get back to you. Otherwise, if you guys have any tips, tricks, or advice, let me know. Thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to help me to grow my page, and in turn, I will help you to improve your photography. This is Austin James Jackson. We'll see you guys next time.